Hello everyone and welcome back to Woman2woman. Well, we have finished our study of the Uninvited, looking at the hurts and pains of rejection, but in particular looking at how we can overcome those hurts and pains when we've been let down, when we've been betrayed, when we've felt like we've been set aside. For you see, God doesn't want us to live rejected. He wants us to live loved in the fullness of Christ's love for our lives. For it is for freedom that Christ died for us. He doesn't want us to be walking around burdened by the hurts and pains of rejection. He wants us to be free and He wants us to live loved. So we've been looking at how we overcome those hurts and pains of rejection. And throughout this study we've looked to the men and women of Scripture and how they have dealt with it. We concluded last week that we need to pour our hearts out to God. We need to give Him that heavy burden. He says, "Come to me, all those who are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." He wants to give you rest from that rejection. He doesn't want you to be burdened by it anymore. He doesn't want your future to be determined by the rejection that's in your heart. For God has a plan for your life, a perfect plan, a prosperous plan. And He doesn't want you to be held back, not for a second, and not by rejection. Today we concluded our study by looking at Joseph's life. You know, Joseph from a young age experienced rejection. You will know this story well. Joseph grew up in a very busy family. He had 11 brothers. And his father, Jacob, loved Joseph. This really annoyed his brothers. They were quite jealous. In fact, they probably suffered rejection. They probably felt rejected from their father because he did favour Joseph, and he got him this beautiful coat, as you'll remember. And then Joseph had a dream, and in the dream it depicted him reigning over his brothers. Now this infuriated his brothers. In fact, his own father, who loved him, even rebuked him for it. So again, Joseph felt the sting of rejection. But it got worse because the brothers plotted to kill Joseph. They didn't go ahead with that plan, but what they did do is they sold him into slavery. Now, throughout this study, we've talked about the sting of rejection when it's someone that we love, when it's someone that we've trusted, and someone that we've had respect for, and they've broken that trust, they've betrayed us, they've let us down, they've disappointed us. How horrible that must have felt for Joseph, being rejected and betrayed by his own brothers. He found himself in slavery. Not before long, though, he became Potiphar's servant. And as the story goes, and as you will know, Potiphar's wife took a shine to Joseph and she seduced him. But Joseph, a faithful man of God, he rejected her advances. Now, Potiphar's wife didn't take that rejection too well. She became unglued, and instead of eating humble pie and accepting the fact that Joseph doesn't want her, she screamed for the guards and she accused Joseph of rape. So yet again, betrayed, locked up in prison. But when we're locked up in that pain and in that rejection, does that mean that God's plan is over for us? No, of course it doesn't. But He doesn't want us to be left there. He doesn't want us to be left in that pain and rejection. He wants to heal us so that we can move forward into the purposes and the plans that He has for our lives. For you see, God had a great plan for Joseph. He had gifted them with the gift of dreams and interpretation of dreams, and He was going to use Joseph. No matter what had happened to him, no matter who had come against him or rejected him, what was meant for harm, God was going to turn around for His good. You know, what you've experienced in your life, the hurt and the pain, the rejection, what they did to you, how they abused your trust, how that hurts. God doesn't want you to be left there. He wants you to heal. And He's not going to let that prevent you from moving into your future, into the destiny that God has for your life. What man might have meant for harm for you, God can turn that around for your good, just like He did with Joseph. Joseph moved into becoming one of the most important men at the time. He had a very prominent, important position. But when the day came where he was going to be reunited with his family, you know, he had a choice. Do I forgive them, or do I hold on to this pain and rejection for the rest of my life? Joseph could have had them killed. He could have let them starve. But instead he chose to weep with them and to forgive them. And we need to do the same. We need to forgive those who have hurt us, who have abandoned us and rejected us. and recognise that, you know, we may have felt that we've been set aside and left out, but in actual fact, God may have set us aside or set us apart for a greater purpose. And if we would allow God to come into our hearts and heal those wounds, so that we can live loved and not rejected, so that we can live in the fullness of Christ's love for us, rather than walking away from every situation in life feeling empty, rather than looking at the world for scraps of love, look to God for the ultimate love, an unconditional love, a love that's without boundaries and without restrictions. It is just freely given by a loving Father to you today. So instead of living rejected, why not allow God to heal those hurts and live loved and walk into the fullness of Christ's love and into the future and into the destiny that God has for you. Until next time, God bless.